Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, welcome to the show. This is the Millennial Millionaire Podcast, and I am your host, Steven Cohen. This podcast is focused on bringing some of the wisest minds from across the globe to discuss concepts, strategies, and ideals that will lead them to be top performers in their respective industries and their lives. This show is for the millennials and millennials at heart to transcend their mindset, their health, and their income to the next level. We are so excited to have you on this journey with us. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show, everyone, Millennial Millionaires. Hope everyone's having a phenomenal September or August and getting ready to start September. Today, guys, we have another special guest, someone who I'm super excited to pick his brain and listen to his gems. We have Reg Malhotra. Mr. Reg is a CEO of Neuromasters Academy. He's the host of Neuromasters Podcast. He's an international speaker, coach, trainer on mindset and NLP, and he's also a hypnosis specialist. The dude has a ton of knowledge. He's been practicing for over 8 years in this space and super excited to bring the value on the show. Reg, thanks for coming, man.
Great to be here, Steven.
Absolutely. So for those that don't know your work and don't know what you're about, give a little background about who you are, what your work is, and then we'll dive deep.
Sure. Look, like you said earlier, I run a company. It's called Neuromasters Academy. The company's purpose really is to educate people. So we get a lot of people come through who want to learn neurolinguistics, they want to learn hypnosis, or they just want to do better at wherever they are. Typically, a lot of business owners, a lot of therapists as well. Actually, they love using these tools, and even everyday people, moms and dads who kind of gotten stuck. One of the very I suppose one of the growing segments of people is people who've had success and something happened and they got derailed. This has been a growing segment since COVID. A lot of people have had significant amount of success and something happened along the way and they need a bit of a shakeup, bit of a shift in thinking, bit of a shift in perspective. They can succeed again, but they got stuck because of what I refer to as significant emotional events.
Why do you think that happens? We can start there. Because I know, and we'll dive deep into this, right? I think there's a few types of people. There's people that have goals, have dreams, and they don't have the courage to pursue it. There's people that aren't clear on their goals and dreams. And then there's people that take action, and then something, like you said, happens along the way, and they're never able to get back to the level of joy, fulfillment, success that they once had. Where do you think those pitfalls happen? And how do you think people can avoid that on their climb to success?
Where those pitfalls can happen, well, there are so many directions I can go with that, but I'm going to try and pick something that is more widespread, right? More, wide-reaching in its application. And typically, people who have big goals, when they start achieving certain things, they can get a little bit greedy, for example, right? They can breach their own values. Right. And, money can do that to people. That's a big one where they, probably somewhere along the way, their good intentions got mixed with a bit of fear, a bit of greed. Okay. That happens everywhere all the time. And they may end up losing, for example, a huge company or a huge amount of money. The other one, interestingly, has been relationships. Something goes wrong in their personal relationship, their marriage, intimate relationship. I see this over and over and over again. They're succeeding, they're making a lot of money, maybe growing a good business, and something is not right at home. And I've seen that to be the root cause a lot of times.
Yeah, no, I would agree. There's a great quote. It says, you don't have a business problem, you have a life problem that's affecting your business. Yes. And I think a lot of people out there that are maybe entrepreneurial, like maybe they have big goals and big desires. I know for myself, I believe in different seasons, understanding the season you're in and executing accordingly. But I think a lot of people are willing to sacrifice certain things in their personal life or maybe their relationship to try and get their business going. But what they realize is once they get their business going, the thing that they sacrifice is actually causing them to suffer in different areas. Yep. How would you advise someone to create that, and I don't know if the word is balance, but create that level of harmony where they're continuing to increase their life, not just one-dimensional, but multi-dimensional?
Yeah, great question. And this question seems to keep coming up. I was actually on a recording with Jeremy Miner, who's sales trainer. And
big fan.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Yeah. I just spent 3, 4 hours with him a couple of days ago, and this came up, you know, how do you either strike the balance or, you know, how do you ensure when you're going after one thing, you don't sacrifice the other or something around that. My view is this on that. Firstly, you got to really question the word balance. Like, different things can be important at different times. Now, you may have heard that quote, you can have everything, but not at the same time. Right? I think you got to pay a lot of attention to that. At different times, you have to pay attention to certain things more. So, a couple of things that are super relevant here. Number one, your values. Right? From an NLP, neurolinguistics perspective as well, your values that are things that are important to you are stored kinesthetically, or they're stored in your nervous system in such a way that you're naturally motivated. You don't have to get up and say, I'm going to do this, I should do this. You just naturally, in fact, a lot of the things you do, if you're doing this, some part of this is in your value system, right? I bet you don't have to, I got to get up and do the podcast interview, right? And so you got to really make sure you understand what your values are and stick to that. Values do change over time. That's one part. The second part is there's a concept called ecology, right, in the field that we teach. Ecology means study of consequences. In other words, aimed for win-win. How is that relevant? Well, a lot of research has shown that people who pursue goals that could be harmful to another can, unconsciously sabotage it at some point. So there's that at play. I'll give you an example. There's this guy who said, Reg, I know the way to get to $1 million. I have the formula, I have the and I can make it within 12 months. I know how to get there. Can you do some of that magic, right? And there's a lot of cool stuff we can do. So primarily, person is naturally motivated. They're going to take more action. They're not going to give into excuses. You can do things in your nervous system. So, it works beautifully that way. But there's a few questions I like to ask. And I asked him, I said, well, tell me about yourself. Tell me about what's happening in your life. He's married. He had 3 children under the age of 6. I said, okay, tell me the impact of this. You know the path to this $1 million, but what will it require you to do? And he said, this, and he'll have to fly around the country and probably be working 14 to 16 hours a day, and he's willing to do it because, you got to go for your goals and all that. I said, how's your marriage? He said, dude, I got 3 kids. What do you think? Right? He's putting it on the kids, but, things are a bit rough at home, and that's why I want to prove it to her. Okay, here's the thing. You have 3 children under 6. You're married. Your marriage is not good, and you want to do whatever it takes. You want me to do some things here. So you work 14, 16 hours a day. I said, I'm not doing it. This is called unecological. So that's our values. Like, ecology must be, take ecology into account when you set goals. A lot of times people don't achieve goals, even when they're taking action, because at some level, there is not enough ecology. I don't know if you ever heard of this concept, but if you know in your subconscious, this is going to harm somebody, it's going to affect, you're going to find a way to screw it up.
Yeah. So in that scenario, because I agree with you 100%, I think people will self-sabotage themselves on the road to their goals and dreams because deep down they're comfortable where they're at, and there's a level of fear or separation between what they want and what they believe they're worth. So for the people that you work with, Reg, what do you do, or what feedback do you provide to help people rewire those unconscious beliefs, so as they are going out there and taking the action, they're not getting in their own way and self-sabotaging?
There's a lot of different things. So one of the ones that, especially for people who have business goals, the one that really helps is a concept called limiting decisions. I know you learned this stuff, but I wonder if that was the same phrasing used or not. Limiting decisions. You've heard of limiting beliefs.
Of course.
This is this concept of decision. Everything, your life's outcomes is the sum total of your conscious and unconscious decisions. So we have this technique that helps you determine when you made a specific decision. Because what is a decision? It's a conclusion you've reached. And when you reach a conclusion, you're going to have behaviors that match it, right? And so say you went on stage and something happened, Maybe you did something stupid and people laughed at you and you experienced a lot of emotions at that time. You may think it was a bad day, but in that moment, you could have unconsciously made a decision that I'm not good at speaking, or that, I'm not good enough. Something like that as well. Or that I should never go on stage. You may not verbalize it this way, but the decision's been made. So we help people use their subconscious mind to find the exact event where a decision was made. We have them go back into that event in a kind of mechanical way. It's not therapy, in a mechanical way, and then disconnect the emotions experienced at that time on that specific event, and then install a new decision. I've seen this do wonders for people. People go their whole life and then go, oh my God, 27 years ago, I made that decision because this is what happened. And as I look at my life results, everything is matching that decision. So as you can see, I'm very, very excited about that technique. So that's one. I hope that answers your question. That's one. I mean, there's a lot, but this particular one has been my favorite because I use it all the time. Because if there's any level that I'm not at in my life or in my business, it's because there is some limiting decision operating underneath. You may have heard, like at every level, you have a new level of limiting beliefs. And so you're going to find events from the past, particularly events where there have been significant emotions. We call them SEEs.
How much do you think someone's success as they get older is dictated based on their childhood and the experiences that they occurred when they were younger?
Majority of it. I mean, you'd know that. You'd know how much of that impacts, I mean, the beliefs, the ideas you adopted. You're producing your life's outcomes. You believe certain things. I believe there are people who believe that sales is a bad thing. Where did they get that view? Maybe they were sold to in a wrong way. Maybe they saw Wolf of Wall Street. I don't know. Maybe they saw their dad saying, bloody salesperson, don't let him come near. And that's a very direct example. And so one day you grow up, you say you're 28, 29, and you're working a job you hate, and you would know very well, Steven, that if you're going to do something amazing in the arena of business, you better have a damn good relationship with sales and money for that matter, right? And a lot of those relationships are determined, through our childhood experiences, but also later. They're always forming. So we think it's childhood only, but actually something could have happened. I found things that happened with me at the age of 25, and that determined my behaviors over the next 10 years after that. And so as we go through life, it's not a bad thing. It's just part of the human experience, but you want to have the tools and techniques, and you want to have the awareness to go, here's a question that I would say, when did I decide that? That's for your listeners. Just if something comes out of your mouth, oh, I'm not a people person, I want you to follow that with, when did I decide that? Wait a moment. Just wait a moment. Stay quiet. Notice things happening in your mind at the time. Notice if there's a picture. This question works extremely powerfully. You find the event. Oh, okay, that's what happened. Holy shit. Like, do I now want to continue with that? Okay, now there are techniques you can mechanically change it, but you can reframe it. There are things you can do organically.
Yeah. I learned this a long time ago, and it's really served me that a belief is really just a practiced thought. It's something that you have continuously to put and feed and put attention onto that eventually over time becomes a belief, and those beliefs become your identity to some degree. In your work, Reg, I imagine it's a lot of inward thinking. It's a lot of reflection. It's a lot of taking a step back so you can see the big picture, which you can't while you're standing in the frame. For the average person out there, or the person that maybe hasn't been through an NLP class, and we can get into that, or they haven't done as much inner work as yourself, what would you tell those people if maybe they're not happy with their current life circumstances? Because, me and you probably both know the stacks. The average person, even in America, one of the most abundant places, in the world, I know you're from Australia, is overweight, they're unfulfilled, they're living paycheck to paycheck, they're not fulfilled in their relationship, they're not fulfilled in their work. Why is that? And what can people really do about it that maybe don't have the level of insight or conscious control over their emotions because they haven't done as much inner work?
Yeah, great question. And I'll go to a few different places with it, and some things will resonate with something maybe a little bit harder for others. So I think it's best we go into 2-3 different spots with that. I'm going to start by talking about a show called Third Rock from the Sun. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
No.
You probably haven't. It was in the early 2000s. It was a great show for those who like, comedy shows. Really cool show. And they showed this family, a man, his sister, and another teenager looked like his son, and another male looked like his brother. That was the idea. And in that show, they have them come onto Earth. They're aliens. And they are given human bodies, and they come to Earth. And now they've been sent on a specific mission to find out about human beings. They got to learn everything. They got to bring that data back to the big giant head.
Yeah.
Right? And without the human body, they're just purple tubes. This show, by the way, went on for more than a decade. It won like a ton of Emmys. Mm. And what's so great about that show was in every episode, they show these people suddenly coming across an idea. Why am I feeling this in my body? Talking about love. What's happening to me right now? Because they had never experienced it. But they also had no beliefs. They had nothing. So every episode they show that they have these new experiences and they go, oh, okay, I have a culture too. I come from here. And so they manufacture all this. That concept always stayed with me, Steven. I was just fascinated. Like, the only reason I watched it was because I wanted to see what else they come across and how do they respond to it. One of the things I talk about in my classes, and actually I've put a whole chapter in a book of mine that's coming out in a couple of weeks. In fact, I've actually called it The Third Rock from the Sun, the chapter. And I'm using that as a metaphor for what if you had no beliefs? What if you had no predetermined ideas about these 3 things? Yourself, about others, and about possibilities. So to answer your question, that's one place I would go. I want you to imagine for a day you're an alien. You're on planet Earth and you have no pre-existing ideas. Nothing. Start with, now you're going to have to do some work. You don't have to do inner work, but maybe just pull out a book and start writing, right? What do I believe about myself? Write it all down. Every single thing, small, medium, large. What do I believe about life? What do I believe about money? What do I believe about people who are succeeding? You'll be surprised what you'll find in there. So that's what I would do first. Now look at your life's results and see if you can draw some correlations, right? I believe that you've got to be super smart to win in life. Let's say that comes out as a belief. Let's say now you didn't do college education and you are not earning enough money. Is it possible that there is a connection? So that's anybody can do this. And the question would be then, what do I do after that? Well, you've got to get on the path of undoing some of those. So, and that's what I liked about that show was I often used to imagine, and this was well before I was doing this work, what if everything that was told to me was suddenly disappeared? It's interesting. I ask a lot of people, imagine you're that. What are some of the beliefs you would like to have? You know what I hear sometimes? Oh, that I can make more money. I'm like, listen to me carefully. You got a genie that's telling you have no ideas, no pre-existing beliefs. That's when you really see the conditioning. Because they can't even come out and say something big. If you ask me, I'll say, well, number one belief, that everybody is magnificent. Everyone's great. Because I can't have that belief. I'm starting from scratch.
Yeah.
Right? Number 2, there is too much of everything. And when I say this to people, and people just look so shocked because some of their conditioning, I said, you can have any belief. In other words, when you have that belief, you'll produce the results. I say, yeah, that, I can get a better job. Dude, like I want you to say, I can have anything, any amount of times. Can you say that? That's one thing I would do. Second place I would go to is, I love and this could be a little bit harder for people, but I have to put it out there. We all have this fear of going into the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And you've done some great things in your life. I know that a lot of your results, as you look back in time, probably been a result of you doing something new, something different, something unknown. And that would be my second highest recommendation is, I know it's scary to do something new, but you will learn about yourself. You will have a different experience of life, and you really will have new, what we call as inner resources. So that's the second thing I would say, go into the unknown. I know there's practicality involved. Oh, I got a mortgage, I got kids. Yeah, but there are still contexts in which you can go into the unknown. I have 2 sons, grown-up sons. I've been married for over 20 years, and I cannot stop going into the unknown, even now. I love everything I do. I thought, okay, I got to do this. Like, until recently, I'd never been on a podcast. Now I love them. And now I love them. I can do this all day long. Why? Because it gets the message out. It helps people. I love to be on the spot. I just think there's nothing better than that, because if I'm really that good, I should be able to do this anytime, anywhere, right? That's the unknown for me right now.
I love it, Reg. What originally attracted you to this work? You've been doing this for 7-8 years. Did you always have this type of mentality or the desire to learn more about yourself and, in theory, help others learn more about themselves? Or where did that desire come from? Was it something that happened when you were little, when you were younger? Because I think anyone that pursues something like this and really wants to become mastery, which I believe you are on these topics, there's something that has really attracted you and pushed you into wanting to do this. And I feel like if I can discover that, in the essence, can help other people take that step to learn more about themselves and their mastery over their emotions, their mind.
Sure. Look, I'm sure you probably hear it all the time from people that you have on your show or otherwise. There's always some pain. So that goes without saying. There's always some experiences that, they make you curious about certain things. So in my case, yes, certainly there was a bit of adversity, bit of I would say a lot of emotional pain, growing up. There's a lot of emotional pain, and that leaves a void, that leaves a story, and then initially you don't have the mind, so you end up doing strange things, but you don't know why you're doing them, and that's pretty normal. But at some point, invariably, if you've had a painful story, at some point, if you don't do something with it, this is my view, if you don't use it in a certain productive way, it's all downhill. There is a point at which you can go to, and from there, you could cause a lot of damage to yourself, to others, to your life in itself. And I think I would say that if you've had negative, adverse experiences, in an interesting way, you're very fortunate, because you're going to be able to go quite deep. You're going to be able, because you have that deeper sense, because you've collected these experiences on your timeline. Again, I'm going to bring that term again. How many significant emotional events have you got? How do you know you got a significant emotional event? Well, go back to any time in the past, an event. Think of any event, and if you feel emotion in your body now, it's still alive. And that means if you have a lot of them, well, I would do 2 things. I would release them. They can stay there as memories. Now I can channel them. In fact, anybody who's doing anything great, you'll always hear a story of pain. So that kind of led me down, and I realized that, this journey is about, certainly it's about giving others the tools, but ultimately it's my own journey of healing. Right?
No, I love that. For those that aren't as familiar, can you explain a little bit what NLP is? I know you're a big fan of Tony Robbins. I am as well. And that was the first time I heard that. Like we talked before camera, I went to an NLP class in 2017, and a lot of the tools still serve me. But what is NLP? And explain a little bit about the work that you do for people.
NLP, well, it stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. The key word is programming, so I'm just going to focus on that. Anything you do a sufficient number of times, has a tendency to become automated. It's just the design of the human, right? You have a green smoothie for 21 days. Some Harvard University says 30 days. Some other university says 60 days. It don't matter. You're doing it, a number of times. It's gonna, it's the design is so that you don't have to think about it consciously. See, our conscious mind is very limited. We cannot think of too many things all at once. So there's a deeper program. Let's call it the unconscious mind, the subconscious mind, the intelligence. And what it does is if you do something sufficient number of times, it turns it into a program. Program means what? It repeats itself. Autopilot. So the programming word is very sensitive. This is unlike just motivational talks or just working on your mindset. This is a little bit more technical than that. And the word I love to use is unpacking. It's a way of unpacking how you do things inside, right? Everything you do is a program. Like if you feel motivated, there is a specific order and sequence in which you did things inside of you. Maybe you saw a picture. See, for me, when I go to the gym, I have two choices. I've mastered this, by the way. I consciously see the picture of me after the session. Then that's called visual. Then I step into the feeling, kinesthetic. That I step into the feeling, that amazing feeling after a workout. I get that. That's more likely to motivate me to get into the car. Very simple. VK synesthesia, very simple. But if we are not conscious of it, and if we don't do this intentionally, it is possible we could run a program which is picture of the task. So a picture of the consequence of performing an action is always going to serve you better than a picture of the task itself. Right? We always run picture of the task by default. So it's really a field where you can unpack, and in the same fashion, you can unpack the things that you've experienced in the past, and then how are they, connected to your life's outcomes now. But you can also unpack behaviors, programs, and one of the greatest parts about this field is also language. That's linguistics, and that is probably more powerful than anything. Like you can literally through your words have a person feeling suicidal, and just through the words, just the order and sequence, or you can have a person feel so empowered that they become unstoppable. So language, as we call it, is the very exciting part of it, and all of that is connected in one field because it's all related to the pictures, the self-talk, the sounds, and the feelings that you create from your mind, the language part, and all of these things, they lead to that. If we can influence that, if you can influence that for yourself, if you can disrupt, delete, change, or add a new one, you're basically fully in control of your life. Does that make sense? That's probably the best way I could explain it.
No, that's great. And I agree 100%. I've always been fascinated with the conscious and unconscious mind and why people, especially in my industry, right? You take two individuals, maybe they come from similar background, maybe they went to the same high school, college, etc. Same opportunity, same product, same homeowners, same area assignment, yet one person gets vastly different results than the other person. And I always ask myself, why is that? Why did my uncle, be able to create this amount of success, but my parents can barely get by? Similar background, similar experience. And it all comes down to the mind. It comes down to all the things that we're talking about, the self-talk. And the more that I dug into that, the conscious and unconscious mind are so interesting to me because, we run our life through the unconscious mind, right? Yeah. It's the thing that keeps you breathing. It's what keeps our blood flowing. It's how, if you go to work consistently, you can get from point A to point B without really having to think about it, without having to Tesla on autopilot. Yeah. Why does that happen? Well, it's because of the conditioning that you talked about. So I think the question for most people is, how do you bring the unconscious conscious? How do you allow yourself to surface those negative beliefs, those doubt, the trauma that you haven't processed, those things that are inside you, that limiting thermostat, I like to call you the identity of thermostat, that low thermostat of what that self-worth is? How do you bring that conscious so you can make those adjustments?
How do you make that conscious? Well, some things are very deeply unconscious, right? Some things, it's a matter of being honest with yourself. Like, where are you being incongruent? I don't know if you've ever seen this, but some people say yes while their head is moving this way. Some people say no while their head is moving this way. There are some physical signs as well. that you can detect. But other than that, it's self-evaluation. If you say, for example, I'll give you an example, probably the best way to do that. If you say, oh, I want to make more money, I want to have more abundance, I want to have more things in my life, and I want to have this car, this house, whatever, stop right there and now ask yourself, what are your true ideas about someone else with money? Start there. That's your unconscious now, in a way. Because you can say to me that you want this, but you deeply joke around that, oh, that rich bastard. You use terms like fat cats. You deeply consider that someone who's got money must be doing something wrong. Listen, there's good and bad in everything. But what is your core beliefs? And if you've got that going on at the deeper level, whenever there's a conflict in the two minds, the unconscious will always win. That's the big daddy in a way, right? That guy's going to win. So that's one way. There are also techniques, Steven. You've done some of that work. There are techniques, like there's a technique called parts integration. Specific type of language is utilized so that the subconscious mind produces pictures to give you the answer. So language is a very big part of it. I'm sorry to say this, but some things do require techniques. I'd love to be able to say you can do it all on your own, but there is a certain language patterns you have to utilize in order to bypass the conscious mind. Because if the conscious mind comes in the middle, it'll try and evaluate, judge, criticize, and say what it wants to. But the truth typically comes out when the questions are asked in a certain way.
Yeah. Need tools,
Need tools.
Too many people are walking around with an empty tool belt and they're wondering why they're not, hitting the goal, attracting the relationship, achieving the level of success that they want. It's because they're not equipped with the right tools, and most of the tools are internal. It's learning things like pattern interrupt. It's learning how to respond versus react. A lot of these things that may not make a big difference in the moment, but I believe compounded over a long enough period of time of zigging when you're not zagging, you end up in a beautiful destination. And I think your mind is kind of like a muscle. Exercising a lot of these tools that we're talking about are kind of like muscles. At first, it feels weird and you have to consciously put effort into it, but eventually it becomes unconscious, and then you create that new identity. Reg, my next question is, Tony Robbins has a great quote, you probably know it, is he says that success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. Growing into my entrepreneur journey, I've been doing this for like the last 11, 12 years. Money was always my big motivator. My parents never had any money. There's always pain around it, right? You're either running towards pleasure or away from pain. I was running away from pain, so money was always something that was motivating. For me, though, I don't know what it was about me, but I've always linked my personal growth to money. The more money I make, the better person I become. The better person I become, the more money I make. I'm very grateful for that. And in hindsight, I think it's because I always had a lot of love in my family. Even though we didn't have much money, I always had unconditional love, so it was never anything I sought as a child. Right. But I know a lot of people out there that make good money. Maybe they're driving the Ferrari, maybe they're in the dream house, but they're unfulfilled. They're not happy. Their relationship's a mess. Their health, they're overweight. Why is that? How does someone achieve the monetary side of success, yet they lack in so many other areas and they're not fulfilled?
Yeah, you're quite right. It's there's a lot of people who have money, who have all the material things, but they're not fulfilled. There's absolutely no question about that. In terms of the formula, so I'm like, is there a formula to it? Well, there's no, one. I mean, there probably is. There probably is a way in terms of how you approach life. We spoke earlier about balance. We spoke about, you would know as a business owner, you have to let go of certain things. You have to pay the price. There's all those elements. In reality, the human being, in reality, sort of broadly speaking, a human being does better when they're feeling abundant, right? When they're not feeling a lot of lack. Because lack it's a bad feeling for a lot of people, right? So we have to improve our relationship with one, certain types of lacking certain things, but then we have to become very clear on our values. Values is everything. Values is everything. You want to be fulfilled, you need to figure out what your values are. If your value is people and connection, and if your value is money, and if your value is health, but You work in a job where you're only working with machines. You are embarrassed to talk about money or earn money because what other people might say, and you don't make time for your health. You just don't. You keep coming up with excuses. Now you've got a direct conflict. The ancient Hawaiians used to say something very amazing, Steven. I love it. We also teach Introduction to Ancient Hawaiian Huna. A lot of parallels, ancient studies have with what we teach. And the very simple advice they had. If something drains you of your mana is your life source energy. When you can go, there are days you can go 15, 20 hours. You don't even need food. That's mana. It's flowing right through you. Your prefrontal cortex is on mission. You're in your values. Your executive function of your brain is dialed in. You can literally produce energy out of thin air. You don't need no food. That's because your life source energy is flowing in the right way. And the ancient Hawaiians said, if something drains you, there are some people and some situations and some things, they just make you feel, even in 30 minutes, you feel lethargic, you feel tired.
Totally.
Well, they used to say, do less of that. And things that boost your energy, your inner life source energy, do more of that. Watch what happens. So I think my formula for fulfillment, certainly get clear on your values and then do more activities that allow you to actualize your values. Seriously. Of course, you money comes and goes, but your fulfillment levels are going to go through the roof. And fulfillment, if money is important to you, will allow you to make and keep the money. A lot of people can make the money, they cannot keep it. And like you said, the more money I make, the better I become, and the better. And look at you as an example. You made money, you've been successful, and here you are. You don't have to do this, right? But you're out there, given to the world. You're spreading the word. This is also a business tool, but I'm sure that you love it. You love meeting people. You love getting this value out there, and I think that is an example of you've got the money, but you want to make sure you're fulfilled as well. Am I right?
100%. Yeah, do more of what fills you up. And yeah, I guess that segues next to my next point. What's your definition of self-care? I think it's a term that has been thrown around a lot recently, and to some degree it's kind of what we just talked about, focusing on your cup and what fills you, and that will allow you to catapult the other areas. I think too many people out there, and I train my sales guys on this, too many people out there are trying to fill everyone else's cup, when in reality, you shouldn't be trying to fill anyone else's cup because that'll deplete yours. You should fill your cup up so much that it overflows into other people. What is your definition of self-care? How can people practice it? And what do people need to know?
Sure. Self-care, yeah, I think it's a bit loosely thrown word these days. It's got a lot of different interpretations, and the visual that comes to mind for anybody, I think right now is, relaxing or doing a bit of yoga, meditation, or looking after your body and getting away. The big one is like stop everything, get away, take time out. I don't know. I have mixed views on all of that. Self-care is being given a category, right? To me, I'm going to go back to the last response. One of the greatest forms of self-care is you actualizing your values. Your values, it means what is important to you. I run 17 to 19 live events a year. And some of my events go 7 days. And I'm telling you, I have more energy at the end of the 7th day. People think I'm half mad. But I'm just sharing what I'm already doing. When I'm actualizing my values, it's like there is an infinite amount of energy available. I think that's a very high form of self-care. Now, you have what's called the physical body. Okay, the physical body is the physical body is the physical body. Yes, mind, body, connection, body, mind. But the physical body is the vehicle. It's the temple. Is that okay? Go a little bit woo-woo here?
Please.
Okay.
I like the woo-hoo.
Okay, great. The physical body is the vehicle, right? Sure, your mind affects the physical body, but you need building blocks. So there is no, looking after your physical body, to me, should be non-negotiable. Because that's the vehicle that gives you the mana. That's the receiving point. You need it functioning in an optimal manner. Doesn't mean you need to be a triathlete. So self-care, physical body needs to be there somewhere. And it's different for different people. Do you know some people could actually suffer more by going and doing lifting weights. Some people could, I mean, broadly, it's a good thing for you, but it may not be necessarily suitable for certain bodies. So you need to figure out what is a physical, activity that increases your physical mana, increases your mana so that you feel physically alive. The second part is mental. I believe in there, how much of your time. I'm not saying you got, listen, there's a lot of talk about do what you love, do what you love, do what you love. Listen, I love that, but in anything you do, there are elements that are not as pleasurable.
Yes.
And I think people are getting misled on that. Because do what you love, to me, that means, are you able to actualize your values enough? Enough. Like you got to move on that path. So have a look at your life. Have a look at what you're currently doing. Write down on a piece of paper what's important to you in different areas of your life. So you write down one about your whole life. Then you write values are different in different areas. Write down your values in the context of your career. Write down your values in the context of your relationships. There's 6 areas really health. Now just have a look. How much of that are you being able to actualize with the current life you've created? I can guarantee you, you may be scared right now I'm saying that to your listeners. Some of you may be scared of making the changes, going into the unknown, doing new things. But if those new things are aligned with your value system, sooner or later, it works out.
Yeah.
That's the greatest message I have, the greatest form of self-care. And then there's a third element, Stephen, about, kind of people go, oh, I just need to get away. Well, there is some truth to that as well. For example, if you're running a high-performing business, there's a lot of data research that shows that every 3 months at least you got to get away from it for a week. Why? Because different environment, like a lot of companies have retreats. There's a reason for it. Different physical environment can lead to different thoughts and ideas because you're exposing yourself to different things. You think differently. Just in the little while that I've been away, I have new thoughts that weren't coming last week. So that's also a form of self-care, and you need time for reflections.
Yeah, I love the value part, and it keeps coming back to values because I agree. Like, without understanding what drives you and what you stand for, you really are shooting blind. You don't have a target. You don't know what direction to go to because your compass isn't turned on and where it needs to go to actually get you to the point where you need to. Do you believe that people evolve their values over time and with experiences, or do you think once you get to a certain age or a certain point in your life where those become more fixed versus fluid?
Firstly, values can change. The number one reason values can change is due to significant emotional events. Notice how I'm connecting the whole thing right now. Values can change because of significant emotional events. So an event, say something like you look at COVID. For a lot of people, it was a significant emotional event. It was because you couldn't do the things you wanted to do. Your whole belief system came up for a shock because, for a lot of kids, for example, a lot of teenagers, my sons were both grown up during that period. They're both in school, right? Their values shifted. So significant, or something like someone passes away, or you have a big calamity happen, an accident, or you lost your job, or you had a problem in your relationship. What's important to you can shift organically without you trying. Let me give you an example. Go back to 10, 15 years ago. Were there things that were important to you that are nowhere near as important now?
100%.
Absolutely not. Like you can't even, what? Say what?
Yeah.
Right? I remember there was a time for me, just being owning a home, like was the biggest thing ever. And until I got it, I was in pain. Now when I look back, there is no way that could be the most important thing to me. Right? So people say you only have one life. I beg to differ. You have one body. You can live completely different lives in the same lifetime. I could not even have a conversation with Reg 15 years ago. I could just go as far as saying, hey, how you doing? That is all.
Love that. Reg, what's your definition of happiness? How do people cultivate happiness? I've heard different viewpoints, and I'm still trying to. It's one of those things that is very fleeting. Some people believe that happiness is an emotion and a state. Others think it's a way of being. Others think it's more of a temporary based situational. What do people need to know about happiness?
Can you predict my answer?
Potentially.
Have a shot.
Fulfillment. Chasing your values.
Yes. I have a very simple formula. I review my values every year. at this point in my life, I'm actualizing my values to the highest extent I ever have, and I'm the happiest.
Simple as that. Understand what you want.
I know if I'm experiencing more days of unhappiness. By the way, happiness is a state. First thing, happiness is a state. It's not a goal. Like I'm going to say something here, mildly controversial, but you know, when you ask parents, go to the street and ask 10 parents, what do you want for your child? Want them to be
happy.
Can you see a problem with that? It ain't going to happen. It is not going to happen. We've all been children. We're all adults. And the reality is this. It's not so bad to have states of unhappiness. But when we connect that to, oh, I was unhappy last week, so I'm an unhappy person, you're running into problems now. Because states, as you know in NLP, all behaviors are state dependent. There are no unresourceful people, only unresourceful states. So if you're doing bad things, if you're not responding to people, you need to recognize that you're experiencing negative states, right? So happiness is a state. So my formula is very simple. I'm in control of my value. I know what my values are, number one. I know when I'm living outside my values, and I don't stay there too long. I'll find a way to come back in, actualize my values. And number three, I have a tool and a technique to change my values. Because your goals, say I got a new goal now, say I got a goal that I want to go and speak on 200 podcasts, right? That's going to require a lot of movement, effort, travel, energy, right? And I'm going to need a value in the context of my work that is about broadcasting, about communication. I can install that. So I'm naturally motivated to that. So that's my answer to happiness. I know it's very technical in its nature. Find out what's important to you. Is that aligned with your goals? Because if your values are not aligned with your goals, you're not getting to your goals. You'd have to come up with some pretty significant theory to convince me otherwise. I'm training thousands and thousands of people, and I'm seeing the ones who are reaching their goals. That's the one thing in common with all of them. Your values need to be aligned with your goal. What's important to you, that is stored in your nervous system kinesthetically, it's not that hard to find out. Go look at where your time, money, and resources are going right now. It's your value. Right? Now, if your value, and now you may say, well, Reg, my value is gambling and enjoying and partying. No. What goals do you have? Okay. You have a goal of $1 million. Do you know what people with $1 million, what their behaviors are? If your current values of being partying all night and gambling and doing all of that is supporting your goals, keep them. So the rest is up to you, like how you view your health on that. But if they're not supporting, now you need to insert, change, or their values are stored in a hierarchy.
How can people shift their values? I know one way is severe pain, and I think that's what most people base it, right? You're going this route on this road of your life, and then something major happens, whether it's a death or a heartbreak or a rock bottom experience. Something happens, whether it was self-induced, which 95% of the time it is, or something happens where you have to make a course correct and the life changes forever. Yes. Does everyone need to go through that rock bottom experience in order to do that? Or can you have enough insight, inspiration, and desire to make that internal shift for yourself?
So yeah, the significant, what you call as pain, a significant emotional event can change your values. But then that's happened to you. You didn't decide, right? The other ways to change values is obviously discipline, insights, and choosing or designing a life. And there are technical ways to change values. There's an actual way. There is an actual way. If people want to know about that, I will. If you want, I could potentially create a video. It'll probably be 45 minutes, and your listeners can try it out for themselves, see what happens.
Or go to one of Reg's experiences, and he'll teach that to you.
Or you come to one of those experiences where it's a guarantee.
100%.
Yeah.
Let's talk about parenting a little bit. I know you're a parent. You have 2 kids. I'm not a parent yet, but it's something that I plan on doing in the future. Understanding what you know about the mind, the unconscious, how important it is when it comes to conditioning, especially from an early age.
Yep.
What is your job, or what is anyone's job? And this is a selfish question for me to become more prepared as a parent. How do you equip your kids in a way where hopefully they're able to maximize life at the highest level?
Wow, what a great question. And I'm sure that's a question that runs through almost every parent's head. Firstly, because you're not a parent yet, you said you want to be one.
Yeah.
When you become a parent, your values will shift. I think that you need to know that.
Yeah.
There are new values that are going to come in, and some old values will become less important. They'll go lower in the hierarchy of values. In terms of ensuring your children's success, I'm going to share my personal view on it because I've been a parent for a long time. I feel I've seen the good, bad, and ugly significant number of times. And I was kind of in the era, I'm 45, so I was in the era where I've had a life well before this technology. I'm talking Atari,
Yeah.
right? Nintendo, that kind of period where Nokia mobile phones, or cell phones with this little snake game. And then I've seen all of this. Like I haven't missed anything so far, right? That is significant in the current era. So my view of parenting, there could be some controversial elements in it, has evolved and changed over time. So how do you ensure that your children succeed? Well, it's going to go back to the same things. Allowing your children to actualize their values, not yours. I just did a podcast recording 2 days ago. It hasn't been published yet, which there was a dad there, one of my students, and we went into it. He's a father of two boys who are both college wrestlers. Right? And he's been my client for a while. And the reason he became a client of mine, a very successful guy, but the reason he became a client was because his boys were starting to show some level of resentment. And he has been in a state of regret that when they lose matches, I lose it. And it leads to all this conflict. And we've done some great work with him. His relationship with his boys has completely changed at the right time. Right? So I bring that up because, people say about instilling values. Well, your kids are going to have their own values. Knowing that what you say and do will form their values, number one. Number two, having an expectation of them being happy is unrealistic. It's just because they're going to have states of unhappiness. And you're stealing away a part of their character development. Now, I'm serious about that. You tell me, did you or did you not face some level of hardship?
For sure.
What if your parents just didn't let you experience it at all? Would you be sitting on this chair today?
Probably not.
So I think it's being realistic about it. Like I would, if it was me now, I would double, triple, quadruple down on communication. All problems are communication problems. If you give them the tools, teach them how because communication is influence. Sales is communication. Even therapy is communication. Even an intimate relationship is 99% dependent on communication. So if anything, I would empower them with life skills. That means that no matter what happens, there could be another COVID for all I care, but these kids will know how to navigate, right? Number two, of course, exposure, where we do have control as parents. What are they getting exposed to now? I'm going to say something very interesting here right now. The world has completely changed. You're not a parent yet, and at some point you're going to be a parent. Whether you like it or not, your children are going to grow up with a phone in their hand. You better believe it. You can put all the controls you want. You're just going to encourage
Rebellion.
Absolutely. Now, here's what I want to say on this. Going back a long time ago, how old are you?
31.
You're 31. Okay, so you still, you had good exposure there. You were not necessarily getting influenced by too many voices other than your parents, maybe teachers, maybe, some friends, and maybe some authority figures, sports stars, whatever you looked at.
Correct.
Do you know how many people kids are listening to now?
Hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds. the subconscious mind our minds have not evolved to take so many messages, so many of them conflicting with each other and trying to make sense of it now. I had a student who, a couple of years ago, whose son, 14 years old, was following an influencer on Instagram who made a mention that your parents are clones. Quite seriously. He went and knocked his mom down, physically. Just let that sink in. So I think as parents now, you gotta firstly not, or parent, if there's someone listening to it as a parent, you gotta know that they're gonna be exposed. No point fighting it. Number two, you gotta develop a relationship of trust. I said to my sons when they were younger, they were, after like age of 4 or something, they're touching the iPads and, they go to school, other kids have got it and they got the games on it. It's all conditioning. Look at the conditioning. Even the games are on it now.
Yeah.
It's all conditioned now. You can't even work without it now. So you got to be practical. I had a really good discussion. I still remember. I said, listen, boys, I don't care what you do. I don't care what you start. I want 2 agreements from you. Number 1, if you come across something on the internet, if you see it and and I know you know what's right and what's not right, all I want you to do is come and tell me. I said, I'm going to reward you. I literally changed that relationship. I said, but if I find out and you did not tell me, you took a huge block of trust, which may be unrestorable. That's exactly the discussion I had with them. Life went on. I didn't say, no, I've seen some parents, now they have to use their computers in the lounge room, in the main room, so they can be seen what they're using. That's telling your child, I don't trust you.
Yeah.
Under the pretext of, something wrong. You want to develop a relationship of trust. If your children don't come up to you and tell you the truth, I'm sorry, you're not doing a good job as a parent.
Yeah. Create the space for dialogue.
Just like in business. If you tell me you're a good leader, I want to know how many of your employees come up and tell you when things go wrong first, before you find out. It's a leadership role. Parenting is a leadership role. Trust needs to be there. And number 2, you need to have a friendship. This is a point I make a lot. We need to stop trying to win our children. We need to stop trying to get them to love us. There is a point at which you want to be the guide and the mentor. I have a lot of parents I work with. A lot of parents, like they're business owners, but they're a parent. And you know what one of the biggest problems I'm hearing nowadays? I don't know how to communicate with my teenager. You think the internet has got something to do with it? I think a lot. You don't even know what you don't even know what your kid is experiencing by watching all these other people on Instagram living these lives. You got no idea. You can't even solve the problem. You don't know what the problem is. That's what we're living in now. And you haven't seen the aftermath of this yet. You have nowhere near seen the kids who are comparison syndrome, who are feeling suicidal, who are doing pretty bad stuff behind your back. I'm sorry, but parents have no idea. So number 1 thing I will double down on, and I'm glad you asked this question because today you are, develop a relationship of trust. Reward them when they tell you the truth. Do not put them down when they do something wrong, because you will close the channel of trust and communication. And lastly, stop trying to have a relationship with who they used to be. They're not a little 5-year-old John now. If you ask kids, they want to be treated for who they are now. Have a relationship with who they are now, for the age they are now, and be their guide and their mentor. Because if you're only trying to win their love, even when they're 17, 18, if you rely upon them for your own self-worth, you cannot be the guide and the mentor.
Yeah, that's a great point. I look at even my own parents, and they got their own work to do. But one of the things I quickly realized was they are so attached to me for their own happiness that it's very hard for them to find their own. And whether you're a parent, whether you're in a relationship, whether it's a business, one of the things that I try and practice is detachment from everything to some degree. And it's hard. We're in a materialistic world and we have strong relationships and there's a spiritual bond there sometimes. But I believe the second that you put your happiness on something external, whether it's a spouse, a parent, everything is temporary at the end of the day, and things are fleeting and life is cyclical and there's ups and downs. And if you attach your internal happiness and fulfillment, your values to something that's external, you're going to go on a roller coaster, and that's just not sustainable for anyone.
Yeah, I love what you said there. And I think parenting is the tricky one, right? Because we have this natural bond. I think I heard about a book, I don't know if that's the exact name, but how how babies turn us into personal willing slaves, something around that, because nature has designed it in such a way that we are, certain hormones are released, certain chemicals are released that make us worry. But I'm just my view over a period of time is, and I've been a parent for 20 years. I've worked with a lot of parents. Reality is most people are doing something in life. They're also parents. And you're quite right. I think parenting is a slightly tricky one as well. I get it. Like I get it. I want to appreciate all the parents. I am in awe of people. I just came here by taxi, and the guy just told me in the cab. He said, he has 11 children. 9 of them are adopted.
Wow.
I said, I bow down to you guys. I bow down. And he's 81, and he's driving a taxi because 55 years he did covert operations for the government, kind of like CIA, but not really, private contractor. Lived in tons of different countries. And what kind of predisposition does this person have? And I said, 81, and you're driving a cab? Well, one of my 11 children got cancer. And he had a lot of money, and they put it all towards that child. So when you meet people, you see these perspectives. He's 81-year-old, and you know what he said? He said, Reg, I just keep going. I said, what do you mean? He said, I can't stop. I said, what do you mean? And he just, when he opened the door, I said, well, Richard, it's been a pleasure knowing you. In that 20 minutes, you're very inspirational. And he goes, 2 words, Reg, keep going. 81-year-old. I said, that was amazing, right? 11 children. But the point, I detract a little bit, point I'm going to come back to is, as parents, work on your past. Work on your past. Clean up the past. Have new meanings from the past, so that you can raise your children from who you are today, not from who you used to be or what you experienced. The amount of times I could probably get $1 million if I got $1 for every single time a person saying, I will never let my child go through what I went through. I can see the validity in that. I can see, is this too controversial? Is that
No?
okay?
Good.
It's different, right? It's because here's the thing. If all you want is for your children not to experience what you experience, and I get it, sometimes it's quite reasonable. Like maybe your parents left you alone and maybe they were doing drugs. I get it. But that becomes like a big story. Then you don't want your children to experience anything you did, and that includes certain type of hardships that made you who you are. So these broad motherhood style statements, I think we need to park them. I think we need to look at, we as parents, I'm so proud of the amount of parents that, mind you, they're in their 30s, they're in their 40s. I'm so proud right now. I mean, over the last 2 years, I've seen more people with children, and they find a way, they're there for 7 days, and their entire relationship with their children is changing. Their model of the world is changing. I'm so proud to see that right now. So many of them. At what point did so many parents wake up and say, I got to work on me? And I think that parents should do that. They should also audit their beliefs. They should also look at the way things are working out in the new world, working in the world, and create your own model of parenting based on that. I think don't just rely on what is the right thing to do, and I think, I would say let your kids, kind of figure out their own path. If anything, encourage them to. I said to my sons, once I said, I'm gonna give you 5 years after school. You got 5 years to screw up as many times as you want. I got your back. After that, I'm not helping you. That was a direct instruction to say, don't follow what everyone does now. Don't just do what everyone does. I want you to try different things. And I think that's my way of saying, better do it now rather than wake up one day like I did. Holy shit, I'm doing something that is completely outside of my values. Oh, sure, I was making a lot of money, but it was someone else's values of success.
Love that, man. Yeah, and I'm grateful. I experienced that at a young age as well, and I think more people need to realize that. I think more people need to realize that, as cliche as it is, you only have one life, and your decisions and your thinking will determine what the rest of your life is going to look like. And if you're not happy, if you're not fulfilled, if you're not aligned and in sync with your values, you can make a shift. You're not a tree. You can change and you can do new things. And I appreciate that message a lot. As we wrap up, you've been awesome, man. We could sit here for hours and just pick. I do want to talk about one of your practices, your modalities, hypnosis.
Yeah.
When people hear the word hypnosis, I think a lot of people automatically go to some esoteric, maybe they went to a magic show once, but hypnosis in the NLP space, as well as just really mechanics of the mind, is super, super important. So what is hypnosis in that context, and do people need to know about it to use it for their benefit?
Sure. Yeah. Hypnosis. Yeah. It's misunderstood. It's also, anything that is misunderstood can be feared. But I look at high performers. I look at people who are doing great things in life, and what is it that they know? What is it that they do that others don't? Right? And you'd be surprised how many entrepreneurs, how many as it is said that as much as 80% of gold medalist Olympic athletes are using some version of hypnosis.
I believe it.
So it is a performance tool. It is also a meditation tool. In fact, the difference in hypnosis and meditation is it's a very thin line. So it's a meditative state, but hypnosis is with a specific objective, right? So the stage show bits, well, that's just comedy. That's like 2-3% of hypnosis. So hypnosis is basically a state in which you can relax so much that you're more open to receiving new ideas. So that's the best definition.
Theta brainwave?
Yes. Well, there are different. It can also be in alpha, theta, or delta. There are different stages. You can. 20% of people who do it for the first time will access light stage of trance. So that's a less deeper trance. About 60% medium. And about 20% the very first time they do it, they'll access what's called deeper trance. The level of trance you access doesn't determine the level of change you will experience. So that's the good news. Essentially, it's a state where you're relaxed enough that you're more open to new ideas. I mean, if a smoker can been smoking for 30, 40 years and lets go of smoking in a 2-hour session, cannot stand it, what is smoking? A program, a behavior. What other programs are you running that could be let go of? I think that's what got me so excited. That's what improved my life so much. By the way, one of the first things I used hypnosis for was to completely change my relationship with money. And it completely changed. People can be scared all they want, but there's a lot of people using it. So it's a beautiful performance tool. It's a relaxation tool. It's a tool that if you're scared that somebody's going to hypnotize you, go and do it with yourself. Learn it. You're always being hypnotized as it is. Did you know that?
To some degree, I agree. Yeah.
All the time. If a message is delivered to you by someone who's in authority, you are more open to believing it. That's hypnosis, my friend. That's why if a doctor, and listen, I'm not a medical doctor, it's not medical advice, but this is what I would do. If a doctor says to me that you have this condition, there's a specific technique I use to not let it enter as a suggestion, because that's hypnotic, because doctor's an authority. So what your parents say to you, what people in authority say to you, about you in particular, can serve hypnotically. So what I would ask your listeners to do is think back in your life, if there are things that were said to you about you from people in authority, I want you to look back in your life and notice if you've actualized that. And now, notice if that's serving any longer or not. Because if you actualized it, and ask yourself, is that really you, or is it because someone said something about you to you? That's hypnosis too, right? That's informal hypnosis. But formal hypnosis sessions, they're very popular. I mean, doctors refer people. I have a lot of elite athletes that I've worked with, that I've trained. I've just trained recently a bunch of pole vault coaches. You know pole vault?
Yeah.
Olympics? Oh. And his students, one of his students, Kyle, he hadn't won a medal for so long. 10 days after the Olympics, the session, he won a gold medal in NCAA, and now he's I know that they're working on getting into the next Olympics. So.
Wow.
I mean, there's a lot of misconception on religion and stuff like that, but the Catholic Church has endorsed hypnosis as long as you utilized by a trained practitioner. If you think about it, all around the world, a lot of the chanting, what is chanting? You're repeating the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
So it's accepted. It's a form of hypnosis. Right? It's nothing scary. The way the fears came in, because people, in our school, we don't use the word under. We only say, can I do hypnosis with you, right? And there's a huge entrepreneurial movement. These entrepreneurs are absolutely swear by it, right? You know, Ellen DeGeneres, Matt Damon, there's a whole list of celebrities that are using it actively. It's not something you just like, I use it all the time.
Is that something people can self-induce themselves with hypnosis?
100%. It's got to be trained, yeah. I do it all the time. A lot of my students do it all the time. They've gone for a, thing, they will use hypnosis with themselves. So I think the word under, and secondly, the fear comes from, I think it's the Bible or some other religious books talk about not controlling someone's mind. And they're saying the right thing. But it's been presupposed that hypnosis means someone is controlling your mind.
Yeah.
Well, that's a very big word. If you came to me and you said, look, I want to let go of I'm getting angry at my wife, I've done physical abuse, and I want this behavior to go. My marriage on the road. And if I help you influence your mind through suggestions, with your permission, while we do the session together, so that that behavior does not ever appear again, is that controlling?
Supporting.
Yes, it's supporting.
Yeah. And you made a good point with the doctor, any type of authority figure that you hold to some type of degree that is edified in your mind, those ideas can slip in there and manifest into something not so good. So yeah. I'd much rather be with someone with the intent and the space to support and to heal and to help shift in a positive way versus just being open to someone saying something that they believe is true about me versus myself.
Yeah. So hypnosis is it's effectively a performance tool. It's a self-help tool. It's a therapeutic tool. It's a tool. It's just a form. Hypnotherapy is, a lot of people use hypnotherapy for childbirth now. There's a lot of, one of the you can use it for, this is not medical advice, but you can use it for manage your pain.
I believe it.
It's a really cool, and it's like meditation, right? You're so relaxed and you're able to, it doesn't matter how much, it's been for stress and anxiety and, and it's such a cool profession for a lot of people. A lot of my students use it now. They're charging a lot of money, getting people results, right? It's a good little thing. People feel good about it. There's only so much you can't just help people by doing motivational talks all the time. You gotta help people change. Change should be measurable. It should be, evidence procedure. They should know changes occurred, their behavior in the real world. Are they making more money? Are they getting the love they always wanted? Are they meeting new people? Are they, are they making better decisions? Are they enforcing their boundaries? These are the real practical outcomes that you want to see.
No, I love it. I love it. Reg, has been awesome, man. My last question for you before we depart, I like asking this question to all the guests. So if you can go back 10 years ago, before you started practicing NLP, before you started really diving deep into the spiritual side of this and the inner work, and the Reg today, who's a master practitioner, hypnosis, performance coach, can give that 10-year-old Reg or a decade ago Reg advice to help accelerate your life, your success, your joy, your abundance, what would that advice be?
Wow. You're good at this. I would say, number one, which I said at the start of the show, go into the unknown a bit more, right? Number two, forgive yourself regularly. I mean regularly. We're all a work in progress. It's like we're in infinite jails, right? We just got to keep finding the keys to the better ones. So you got to forgive yourself. And number three is master communication. All problems are communication problems. That means all solutions can be communication driven, right? Local level, intimate relationship, family, interfamily, society, community, even inter-country. Comes down to it. If you haven't decided to master anything in your life, if you're feeling lost, if you don't have a purpose, if you don't know what to become great at, choose communication. It will impact every other area of your life.
Well said, man. For the viewers and listeners that want to get connected to you, want to learn more about your work, where can they find you?
The best place would be neuromastersacademy.com. Neuromastersacademy.com is just one word there. that's where you can have a look at some stuff. And also, if you really want to know more, you can just lodge an inquiry, fill a form, and our team will be in contact with you. You can get some cool resources that you can try out. We've got some, we do some live events. Well, we do a lot of live trainings, live events. We do courses on, so we have Neurohacking Live, which is a flagship course that covers, NLP and coaching and so forth. Neurohypnosis. And we have practical courses, beyond that, neuro money mastery to heal your relationship with money. That's very important. Neuro relationship mastery. And then we also teach introduction to ancient Hawaiian Huna. You might be wondering why so many things, but they're all interrelated, right? We believe that people should have a damn good shot at mastery or aiming towards a great experience in these three pillars, these three areas. Number one is self. And that includes communication. So unpacking self, knowing yourself, being able to change yourself, all that. Number two is relationships. One of the greatest advice I ever got was you need to be able to build a relationship with anybody.
Yes.
Right? You need to figure out, and that includes intimate relationships. I think that's an area for a lot of pain for a lot of people. Okay? It's a very complex area. It's one of the most rewarding areas, right? So no one teaches us this. Nobody was teaching this. I said, I'm going to do it, right? And we have a fabulous, next week, we've got a 2-day neuro relationship mastery. We've got a ton of couples, singles, everybody coming in, and they leave completely transformed. Choose that pillar. Work at it. Always work on your relationship. Whatever you appreciates. Go all in on it. Do not be half-assed at it, right? Because if your relationship is not where you want it to be, your business, your career, everything has a ceiling. So you must, and there's a lot of lessons to be learned in there. It's a very, very important spiritual journey if you see it as such. And there's a lot of fun in it. And the third one is resources. So let me repeat that again. Self, relationship, and resources. And resources includes money. Whether you like it or not, money is a tool we use for exchanging value at this point in time, right? And whether you like money, whether you don't like money, whether you think money is good, whether you think money is bad, you want to, most importantly, change your relationship with money. If you've got a lot of money scars, money wounds, problems that have happened in your life that you have a negative meaning about it, heal it. Because even if you're going to do something great, even if you want to give to somebody, Mother Teresa was fabulous, but she knew how to get funds channeled to her cause, right? So those are the three areas. But yeah, Neuromastersacademy.com, and also I'm on Instagram, Reg Malhotra Official. I'm putting a lot of stuff about if your relationship is of interest to you. Lately, a lot more stuff on that. And yeah, we're all over the internet, really.
Love it. Guys, definitely go check out this guy's work. Go check out one of his live events. Definitely get plugged in with his resources. Dude, thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been awesome. Guys, we'll see you on next week's episode. Thanks for tuning in.